Nancey, you believe that morality is objective. There is an absolute sense of what's right and wrong in the universe.
Yes, I do.
Do you think that is based upon your understanding of the structure of the universe, the cosmology? Does that inform your morality?
Well, it's related to it, but the ultimate answer is that it's based on my theology rather than my cosmology. But I've got a very complex way of trying to tie the science and the religion together and fit the morality into a system that contains both of those.
I'd love to hear a simple version.
Okay. This is based on a book that I wrote with cosmologist and mathematician George Ellis. George is a Quaker and a pacifist and was heavily involved in the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. And so both of us have rather unusual theologies. I'm a member of the Church of the Brethren and also a pacifist. And but we've also been involved for a long time in science and religion dialogue. We noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of attention being paid to morality at all in that dialogue, and we wondered what would happen if we tried to unite theology, science, and consideration of moral issues in a single system. So we began looking at what's called the fine-tuning of the universe. This is a specialty of George Ellis's. And we came to the conclusion that the apparent fine-tuning of the cosmological constants could possibly be explained scientifically, multiple universes or something like that. It also could possibly be explained theologically, divine design. But it's not very interesting to just stop there because that's, take your pick. We wanted to argue that there was more strength for the theological explanation than for the scientific explanation. We said that you could do that if you could show that there's additional reason to believe in God other than the fact that God makes a convenient explanation for the fine-tuning. And of course there is, because there are all of the religious experiences, the existence of religion itself, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't think you can argue for just God, plain old vanilla God. You have to argue for some particular conception of God. And given our particular theological background, we wanted to argue for our particular conception of God, which is a God who sponsors what we call a kenotic ethic. And kenosis comes from the idea that God empties himself in order to become human and to play a role in human life and to save humans. And we extend that to humankind to say that in imitation of God, we need to make self-renunciation a central part of our ethic.
For the good of others.
Yes, self-renunciation for the good of others. And that may just sound like your typical be nice sort of ethic for Christians, but where the rubber meets the road is in economic self-sacrifice and even much more drastically in giving up legitimate self-defense and becoming a pacifist.
Well, what you're saying, though, fairly, is that you were building your cosmology and your absolute ethics based upon a predisposed view.
Yes.
So you didn't pretend, as some people do, to derive your morality and your pacifism from some ultimate reality, but rather having a firm belief in that and then worked it backwards, in essence.
Well, I'd put it a little bit differently. We didn't pretend to derive God from the natural world. That was a project from previous centuries that we think has failed. We also don't pretend to derive our ethics from the natural world. So
where's your ethics coming from, then?
It is, in fact, coming from our theology.
Which is a revealed
yes.
ethics?
The theology is revealed. It's our understanding of what the New Testament teaches, and it's also our understanding of what the New Testament teaches about ethics. We say it's Jesus' ethic. It's the ethic of the Sermon on the Mount. love your enemies, do good to those who hate
So
you.
that's your rock, that's your
Yes.
foundation.
Yes.
And then you look back at everything else and see if you can make that consistent
That's right.
with your foundation, which
That's
is
right.
a fair methodology. A lot of times people can confuse what they're doing.
Yes.
Does that mean, though, that your ethic is inviolable because you believe it that strongly?
Well, we understand the nature of theological and ethical knowledge to be comparable to scientific. That is, you can have good grounds for it, parts of it you have better grounds for than others, but it's fallible. And so we certainly don't think our theological knowledge is infallible. We do not believe our ethical knowledge is infallible. But we do think that the pacifist part of our program is central.
Can you argue from morality to make inferences for the existence of God? Because your causal relationship, believe in God, believe in revelation, the scriptures, come up with an ethic and then argue from that. Can you go the other way? Can you start with a morality, your ethic, on general terms, and then argue at least for an inference that God is the best explanation for that?
I don't believe so. Arguments like that were made back in a time when there was much less moral relativism, and we live in a period of time where moral relativism is rampant. And so to find someone who agrees that there is some sort of objective moral basis, and in order to explain that universal moral basis, there must be a God who that argument simply won't work rhetorically. And I also think it simply won't work in any case, because I don't believe that there is any grounds for an objective morality apart from a God who has made it so.
So, in stark terms, if there were no absolute revelation that you believed in, you would be a moral relativist.
Yes.